I definitely wanted to welcome everyone today to our webinar. Thanks for joining us. We're excited to dig into the topic of what's working for your local SEO in 2025. I'm Nick. I'm the director of brand partnerships over here at NetSertive, and definitely excited to speak with you today, Garrett, and also get into the weeds of how to optimize your local SEO. So I'll stop there and I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself since I know I didn't do its justice.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Hi, my name is Garrett Stelly. I'm the digital marketing specialist here at NetSertive. I've been doing SEO since 2017. My forte is really on the technical side, the on the website side, making optimizations, cleaning things up, and writing content. But today we're going to dig into a little bit of local SEO. So that's pretty much getting those local visitors, people from your immediate area in, and excited to talk to you guys about this. While we're here, if you guys want to talk in the chat and kind of just tell us, where you are and what your experience with SEO and digital marketing at large is, just so we can get a feel for who we're speaking with.
Yeah, so like beginner, intermediate, advanced. That's kind of what Garrett was talking about. But I can give you guys a little bit of back while you guys are doing that. I'll give you a little bit of background about who we are here at NetSertive. So really, our journey starts with being founded over 15 years ago, and really our first customer was actually a multi-location franchise business, which made us realize that there are a large set of complexities out there that you guys tend to deal with when it comes to that digital advertising and try to reach those local customers online. So we're a trusted partner for multi-location brand and multi-location franchise brands as well, looking to streamline your digital marketing efforts while also maintaining that strong local presence. So yeah, Garrett, that was that
Sorry
slide,
about
but
that.
no worries. I know you were looking at the chat trying to see the advanced, intermediate, or beginner stages of that SEO. So, but yeah, I guess it kind of brings us to our first topic, Garrett, which I know that you want to get into, which is what's working for that local SEO in 2025.
Yeah, of course. If you've followed SEO for any time, or if you're just kind of getting into it now, the good news is the fundamentals are always relevant, and that's pretty much everything in digital. As things get more complicated and we have AI making decisions for us, it's more important than ever that we understand the real basics behind why we do the things we do and what kind of impact they have on the things we deliver. So I'm going to get into some of that. I'm going to go over some of the real fundamental concepts of local SEO, but also maybe some more advanced things that people who are more familiar with these topics might find valuable. That is to say, this webinar is kind of aimed at more general knowledge, maybe not so tech savvy, but if you are an SEO professional, maybe you're already pretty advanced in SEO, you might gain some new knowledge from this webinar. And looking at the chat, I can see we've got some intermediate marketing teams, some people that have just started doing Facebook ads. That's pretty cool. So yeah, let's get right into it, I suppose.
Dive ahead.
Cool deal. All right, so like I just mentioned, yeah, the search experience is changing. Of course, when you search anything on Google, you can
Uh-oh. Garrett, I don't know if it's me or if it's you, but I think you're breaking up a little bit.
probably told me some lies in the past, but it's the very first thing you see, and followed by that are the paid ads, which we've spoken of. It's something we offer as well. We do mostly paid ads, and it sort of is starting to offer a lot more SEO services. So that's my forte. And then, of course, we have the organic, which is way at the bottom. It's sad to say, but yes, it's kind of the third in priority. And because of this, I want to highlight the idea that this search engine results page, of course, that's kind of the SEO, that's our rule book, our bread and butter. Every decision we make is to please this experience, right? So things kind of shift around where the results lie. But at the end of the day, it's important to remember that this is always changing. And we're using Google as the example here. Of course, there's Bing and there's Yahoo and Yandex or whatever you decide to use, but this experience itself is very dynamic. So it's just another reason why the fundamentals are always important. You're going to hear tips and tricks, ways to game the system or whatever, but as long as you have those basics down, you're starting yourself with a solid foundation. And even the AI overviews, since we took this screenshot, which was for it was for a different webinar about the AI, or I think it might have been about paid. Uh, AI overviews no longer show local results, so that's something that even Google, they're kind of testing these things and seeing how they work. So it is on us to keep up with that and figure out what works and what doesn't. I saw
Yeah,
somebody say that I was breaking up. Is that
yeah, you were breaking up a little bit, but I think we're back on track. And to
okay?
touch on the Google point, Gary, yeah, I think 95% of search comes from Google. So that's really the bread and butter and really what you want to get right. But it's also important to be found on other search engines because it provides trust that Google is representing that brand and that location correctly as well. So Google also, what Garrett, correct me if I'm wrong, but Google also goes to other sites to make sure that the source of truth and everything is adding up correctly to them be able to optimize that Google business page.
Yeah, well, we can get into that. Yeah, most of the time, specifically with the AI overviews, that's something that is a big point of contention. Uh, that is not quite the case. There's not so much, validity going on. But when it comes to local, yeah, there's a lot of different leads going out from Google. It's searching your Google business profile, they're looking at your website and kind of just trying to verify your information to make sure that this person is who they say they are and their information is accurate. And if I am breaking up, Nick, please feel free to ask me to repeat myself or something. I can't hear it. These are new AirPods, so hopefully it's not those. But
No,
if anybody has any questions so far, we can maybe look into them. If not, I'm gonna just move forward.
yeah, everything's good on our end. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to go in the chat and ask away. We'll go ahead and try to get those answered in a reasonable time frame.
All right, so today in this webinar, this is what we're going to be going over. And again, this is just the foundations for reaching your local audiences. As I mentioned earlier, that is the people who are in your immediate vicinity. If you're a service area based business, that is your area of service, right? Generally 25 to 50-mile radius around your location. And that's going to consist of the content that you publish on your behalf, either on your website or on other platforms. That's going to be your Google business profile, which is kind of the cornerstone for local SEO. It's like your website for local SEO. We treat the Google business profile as very valuable property. And then it's going to be about tracking and reporting and analytics, all of those fun things. Taking a look at how people interacted with your platforms and how they got there, what did they do when they got there, and when did they leave, and using that data to kind of inform the rest of these decisions. Yeah, because the whole point is it's about that location relevance. It has a lot to do with where the person is physically located whenever they're searching for something. So you can't do a whole lot about where you are in relation to a searcher, but you can have something to do with how much more relevant you are than a location that's closer to them, which, sorry if that was a bit confusing, but that's all about the local relevance. All right, so first of all, we're going to speak on the local on-page content. On-page is just an SEO term for the things that are on your website. So whenever we talk local on-page, this could be the content of your homepage, the content of your services pages, or any blog posts you write. But there are just a few things to keep in mind, some key points. You can follow this kind of like a checklist. But first, it's, of course, your target market and audience demographics. While this is something that you might have internally, you might understand this about your customers through surveys or through research. You can also find this out using Google properties like Google Search Console, Google Analytics to get a more informed picture of who is interacting with your content and your platforms, and in what ways. What do those people look like? What are they interested in? Their age ranges. And the reason why we do this is because it it helps understand what they're doing and why. Like, why would they want to find your location, and how does that relate with maybe uh, their industry or their age range or their family size. And that goes right into the next point, which is identifying your local keywords. Something that I've heard in another webinar is that keyword research is audience research, and keyword research is one of those SEO buzzwords that some people hate it, some people love it. But really, what it is you're just trying to understand, what was this person looking for when they searched up this particular series of words. What were they expecting to find, and did I provide that to them, or did my competitor provide a better answer? And if the latter is the case, then your competitor will outrank you. So that's kind of the reason why we do these things. And I saw Michael ask, do you provide the reports for analytics, or what is it, Google Reports? We will be getting into kind of the analytics and tracking later on in the webinar, but essentially, if you have a Google business profile, like if you claimed your Google listing, there are reports within that Google listing that will tell you how many people saw it, how many people called you, asked for directions over a period of time. So pretty much every platform kind of has their own set of analytics. You can install Google Analytics on your website, but if you haven't done that, it's something you'll have to get set up to see that. But if you use something like, Wix or a website builder, sometimes they come with it baked in. And the report for how long they're on it, that is something that's included in Analytics, Google Analytics. It's a piece of code you can install on your website. Load time, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, if you're asking about the website load, but I'm going to come back to that question after I get through these. So I'll come back to that. So the next point is, whenever you're creating content, if you have physical locations for your brand, you're a multi-location business, or maybe you have 5 locations, it's important to have a location page specific for that location. So I'm located in Lafayette, Louisiana. Let's say I have a business that's located in Lafayette. There's a location in Scott, and there's a location in Dusson. I'm going to have a specific page for each of those locations with the specific details, like their phone number, their address, maybe a little bit about them. Definitely a picture of the storefront if that's relevant. That's a pretty easy one. That's a no-brainer. If you have locations, have a location page. It's not enough to just list all of your locations in the footer. Definitely something I've seen before, but also that's not very scalable. Once you go to 10 locations, you don't want 10 locations in the footer. It's going to be hard to look at. And another point on that as well, before I move to the next one, is also writing content around kind of the neighborhoods and the census designated zones which surround or are included by certain cities. Like, I know there are neighborhoods and stuff, or there are certain zones that they're not quite cities, but you do refer to an area like North Highland, or uh, just like neighborhoods and houses. You might want to just include those kinds of phrases in your content when you're, for instance, I'm talking about Lafayette. I might talk about the North Lafayette area in my content, just because it's a thing that people in this area use those terms, that will tell Google, like, hey, this person is in the know. They're physically located here, so they know the kind of phrases that this group of people uses to explain their area. And the next one this is a really big one too, kind of a long one. Participating in neighborhood and community focused content, attending and covering local news and events. This is a huge one. If your company, if you do any kind of promotion or any kind of sponsorship, so I say, if you sponsor a baseball team, or you sponsor an event, or you take part in an event, or you go to a trade show, every single one of those is an opportunity to create localized content. You've got your business name, you've got the physical area where that event took place, and then you've got pictures and videos that you can combine all of that to create a really rich, a signal rich piece of content to deliver, that Google will see that and say, hey, this person is active in their community. This business is definitely relevant to this location, and I can tell from all these different signals. So keep that in mind. Anytime you do anything on behalf of your business that's not put on by your business, or even if it is, uh, showcase it. Take record. Write a blog post, even a social media post is enough. But on that note too, if you're a part of any, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, Chambers of commerces, that's the one. If you're part of any local directories, chambers of commerces, any kind of organizations that are specific to your physical location, you want to leverage those, and you want to. I'm not saying go and join them. I know a lot of people, feel a certain type of way about those organizations, but if you are already a part of one of those, make sure that you have like a listing on their website. Make sure their website says that this company is a member of our Chamber of Commerce. See if you can get a link back to your website. That's what we call backlinks. Those are really good. Anytime you can have another website talking about your website or your brand and linking to it, 100%, that is awesome. Gonna move forward. What's up?
I was gonna say,
Did you
yeah,
have a
it's always
question or something?
I was gonna say it's always nice to give to get back out in the community and give back to, and then also to like
Oh
you
yeah.
mentioned, taking content, pictures, videos, or whatever it is, and then being able to bring them back to life through, like you mentioned, on page content, and just capturing all that stuff. Looks good in the community as well as helps with your SEO as well.
And it also is kind of like a internal record keeping. Maybe there's somebody onboarding at your company, they're going to go through your blog and they're going to read that and like, oh, that's awesome. Why don't we do that anymore? Or that's why we do that every
Yeah.
year. So yeah, it's just, sometimes I talk about stuff specifically in the lens of SEO, but there are definitely other reasons to do it. But yeah, I'm main focused on the SEO of it all, and showcasing customer success with local context. Uh, I know that's a little bit wordy, but essentially just show off your customer reviews when your customers take pictures of your work, or they take pictures of your workers, or they, hey, I really love the job you did. I want to show my appreciation. Ask them if you can feature their review on your website, maybe on your social media profile, just to, for one reason to get those local signals, but also to just show them that you appreciate them and that their opinions matter, their feedback is valuable, and it definitely is. And one more thing that I did want to mention. Oh, did you have a question or
No,
something?
go ahead. I'll ask after.
Sure, sure. uh, the if you are a more technical, maybe you're on the SEO team, a really important piece of local SEO is to get the local business schema on your contact page. If you don't know what that means, that's perfectly fine. Ask your webmaster to do it, or ask your SEO team. But it's essentially a little piece of code that says, this business is located at this place. They offer these services. Here are their opening hours. It's just a really easy and concise way to send a direct signal to Google that gives all of your information without actually having to physically put it on a page or physically list it with Google.
Okay, yeah, and then from my perspective, so I'm thinking from a customer's perspective for this question. If you're like me, you're always on your phone. So I mean, having a website and having it be mobile friendly, like how important is that?
Yeah, super important. The most important thing, I would say, other than having your website exist and say the name of your business and what you do, it's the most important thing for a website. As Michael asked, he was asking about how long does it take a page to come up, the load time. In my industry, that's kind of like that's the first thing you think of, but I understand not everybody has considered that. The iPhone has been around since 2007. We're almost 20 years past that, but yeah, you absolutely need to make sure your website plays nice with smartphones, with any kind of screen sizes. That's one of the first signals that Google tries to get from your website. If Google attempts to access your website from a mobile agent and it does not have an enjoyable experience, they're not going to consider you more relevant than somebody who does have a nicely done website, right?
Mhm.
So Heather asked, what are the best practices for optimizing location specific pages when you have multiple locations within a geographically small region? such as 5 locations in Lafayette. How can businesses avoid internal competition and enhance their hyper local SEO? Man, Heather, it sounds like you work over here in that startup, man. No, that's a good question, and that was something I mentioned is those those neighborhood and those census designated zones. That's one of the easiest ways to kind of capture that in the same city. It's really the most relevant with a much bigger city, like those metropolitan zones that do have specific names. Like maybe New Orleans would be a better example for where I am because Lafayette's not that big. Most companies have one location in Lafayette, but um, yeah, it is a tough one. It's one we kind of deal with, and internal competition. I would say one of the best ways to kind of figure that one out is that's actually more of like an internal conversation where you you want to define your service areas. You want to kind of draw out on a map and say, look, this is something I experienced with the Papa Lock. Actually, I was working with one in Florida, and they were competing with Orlando, but they weren't in Orlando. They were near Orlando, right? So they had the issue of, Orlando was taking my leads. I'm trying to take Orlando's leads, but not really. So it's really a matter of kind of fine tuning exactly who owns what turf, so to speak, and just making sure you appeal to that. And if you have some kind of like a handoff process, perhaps internally, where hey, I got this lead, they're here. I don't know if that's a thing you'd like to do, but um, yeah, unfortunately, that's a really tough one, and I don't know if I have the best answer for that, but it's definitely fine tune exactly where
Yeah.
those places are, and then speak on the neighborhoods within that zone.
Yeah, it's almost like having like a territory map, Heather,
Right?
internally, and
Yeah.
sticking to that within your organization.
I'm gonna move on to the next one. So that was pretty much all I had to say about on page. If you have any more questions about on page and website SEO, feel free to ask. Although this webinar is mostly about local SEO. So we're going to talk a lot about the Google business profile. So something that Nick brought up actually while we were going through this, and I think this is so important that I'm going to say it right now. If you do not have access to your Google business profile or your Google My Business is what it used to be called, or your Google listing, all the same thing. You need that. You need to go and get access to that. If you go and search up your own business on Google and it says, "Are you the owner? Claim this business." You need to have that done. It's something that I kind of assume that most people would have, but it is a bit difficult. Sometimes we, forget logins, forget passwords, we lose accounts, which is perfectly fine. But super simple process. It's just a matter of either, I think they used to do a postcard, now they do like videos and phone calls, but you need to be the person in charge of your digital asset if you're the business owner. So definitely get your hands on that and get that set up. But outside of that, assuming you do have access to your Google business profile, one of the most important things is to make sure your information is consistent across all those platforms. And if you're an SEO person, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. It's something we refer to as NAP consistency. NAP, it stands for name, address, and phone number. And this is essentially, it boils down to what your business name is written out as on Facebook, on Google, on Yelp. I know sometimes I'll see businesses that say, like a common one around here is Billy's Boudin. It's a cracklings company. They'll have Billy apostrophe S Boudin. There are some that say Billys with no apostrophe. Some of them say Billy's with an S with the apostrophe afterwards. That matters. That absolutely matters. You want that to be 100% consistent everywhere because you don't want to give Google the opportunity to get confused by that and think, oh, these are separate businesses because Google is a machine, right? It's not a person. It can't see that and just be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is clearly the same thing. It will see those digits in different places and assume that it means different things. So if it comes
Mhm.
to apostrophes, commas, LLCs, make sure that whatever you decide to do is consistent everywhere.
Yeah, quick question to that, Garrett. I don't know if anybody else has this question out there in the chat, but a lot of companies, and especially franchise brands, have the name of the business and then comma the location. does that affect, like, what does that do to the SEO and, ranking higher into those search engines as well?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I have seen this a lot too, and in the Billy's Boudin example, this is a company I've worked with in the past, and everybody loves their cracklins. But I would say that whether or not you decide to do the name of the listing, so like Billy's Boudin Lafayette or just Billy's Boudin, that's entirely up to you. It's not going to have a massive impact on how you appear. If you're located in the city that your location is relevant to, you are relevant to it. You don't have to also put the name of the city in there. Uh,
Mhm.
it really depends on how you refer to it internally, but I would say uh, again, however you do it in one place is how you should do it everywhere, right? Don't have a Facebook page that says, you know, uh, Pop a Lock in Chicago, and then your Google business profile just says Pop a Lock. You want them to be consistent. And Facebook is a little bit more friendly with that because it's a social media platform. It's not a listing. But I
Mhm.
would say if you if you haven't decided already, I would put the name of the city or whatever you call the location. Some people call it this company north or south end or whatever. Just make sure that whatever you decide to do, it's the same. And I will say it has a small impact on SEO. It's not going to make you more relevant if you're actually located there.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a couple questions in the
Sure.
chat. One about citations, like, are citations valuable for service area businesses, or is Google still really the only and important one?
Yeah, so that one, my personal opinion is that these ones that you see on screen, right? You got your Facebook, Apple, Waze, the kind of things that anybody would be familiar with. I would say those are probably the most important to get going as like a foundation. Additional listings can only help, right? Like it's just adding on. They definitely don't have as big of an impact as your Google listing or your Yelp listing or your Apple Maps. But I would say it's a trade-off between kind of cost benefit, right? Like, do you have the means to go and acquire 100 new listings and make sure they're all consistent all the time? If not, I would say kind of, place your bets where it makes the most sense. Do the ones people are familiar with that you're familiar with, and especially do the ones that are relevant to your industry and your location, right? Like I've worked with a
Yeah.
psychologist and they use a directory called Psychology Today. It's not something I think anybody else would get on unless you're a psychologist. But if you are a psychologist, you should absolutely be on that because it's like one of the biggest ones. So you'll know better than I will about which directories and business listings are relevant to your industry. But I would say kind of the big ones that anybody's familiar with, social media profiles, and then industry ones. And Paul said, if I'm aware of any issues of Google automatically suspending accounts upon creation, it's instantaneous. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to get into that. Like I mentioned, Google is a bunch of machines and robots. Sometimes things, and I hate to use this word, things are cursed, right? Like I've worked with websites that are cursed, domains that are cursed. Not really, but it's just sometimes it's just unfortunate. It could even be that there was a business previously located at your location that had a bunch of issues with Google, and internally they've decided that that address was the problem, or perhaps that name was the problem. The best thing you can do is reach out to a Google rep, which I know is impossible to do, but that's something that you really need to kind of deep dive on that. I'm not really able to debug that from here. But I'm gonna keep moving through this. We only have a couple of slides left, and then we'll get to the Q&A section. I'm very thankful for everybody for being involved and asking questions. This is great stuff. But I want to get to a couple of these. So Google Business Profile optimizations now. Uh, this will be actually, if you do have issues with Google suspending your accounts, this could be where it happens. They'll do that for a couple of reasons, like if your business name seems spammy or something like that, or if you put inaccurate information into this section. But this is basically what we're looking at here is just all of the things that you can put in your Google business profile to tell Google what you do, how you do it, what kind of amenities you have. Um, any kind of accessibility options. And my advice for this is whenever you claim your Google business profile and you get access to it, is to absolutely fill out everything you possibly can that makes sense to for your business. One of those things is the business category. And this is a very contentious one because when you see business category, what you'll want to do is just search up every single word that's in any way relevant to your business. You know, if it's even a niche product that you offer, you're going to want to put the categories. I will say have some restraint on that. What I suggest is that you decide which of the categories is going to be your primary business category and make sure that is the absolute best description of what your business does. And then for additional categories, I want you to ask yourself, um, do I do everything that this business does? You know, an example I gave is like if you're a company that, you know, you do house cleaning and you also offer pressure washing services, right? Do you do everything that a pressure washing service does? Do you pressure wash concrete and businesses and all of the things you would expect? Or do you just do it sometimes? And if that's the case, I would say refrain from adding that as a category because Google is going to want to show you as that category. And if you're not relevant for it, then you're not going to show up. And you only have a limited amount of slots to put those additional categories. So definitely make them count. And then for the other fields, I would say, again, to the best of your ability, if you can get this information, if you can fill it out, you absolutely should. Even the free or paid Wi-Fi, I know that seems frivolous, but if you have free Wi-Fi, put it in there, right? Because it's an option. There's no reason to keep it blank.
Yeah,
Um,
even like even what Garrett like what types of like if you're cash, if you accept cash, if you only do credit
oh yeah,
cards, like
yeah.
what type
That's
of
another big
payments.
one. The payment options is a really big one if you accept Apple Pay. I know that's one I actually use often because I forget my wallet sometimes and I'm just like, oh man, do you guys have Apple Pay? And I'm always so grateful when they do. But yeah, let them know if you use Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, definitely prices. I'm sorry, payment options accepted, and make sure your hours are consistent as well, not just on Google, but everywhere else. That's another thing I've encountered in my waking life is that I look at somebody's hours and then I look on their website and they're different. And I try to call them. And I'm like, hey, are you open or not? They don't answer. I can't get a real answer about the hours. So just make sure your business hours are correct. If you have some time, go in and do some of those specialty hours, which are like holidays, days you might be closed. I would say you don't have to go too crazy on that. But if you have the time to do 5 years out, go ahead and put if you're going to be open for certain holidays as far out as you can. And the new one actually is social network URLs. That's not something they've always provided, but yeah, if you have those, put them in there. Why not? All right. I'm going to move on to this next part as kind of on that last point when it comes to filling out your Google business profile and optimizing it to the best that you can. You have the option to showcase your products on the Google business profile. So if you sell food or physical objects, you can put them on Google Business Profile with a picture, a description, and a link to your website. This is especially good if you have like an e-commerce store or like a kind of like a pre-ordering thing. I'm not sure what to call that, but essentially someone can purchase something on your website and then go and pick it up. You can give them a link directly to the product from the Google Business Profile. Google's always trying to reduce the amount of clicks that people have to go through to get what they need. So this is just another step in that process where they found you locally. Hey, look, they offer, I don't know, whatever this is, chamoy bananas or something. It's like hot Cheetos, and just click a button right from Google and instantly are brought to your location, or I'm sorry, your product page. They didn't need to browse your website. They just went right to where they needed to be. That's a good thing. We want to reward the users. We want to have a good user experience. And if you don't offer products, if you offer services like pressure washing or whatever it is, or house and car unlocking, there's also a services section, and it's not as robust. You can't put pictures, you can't really put descriptions, but this is where how we were talking earlier about the additional business categories, how you might want to put absolutely everything that's relevant to you. The services section is where you have a lot more freedom to list out each and every service you offer. You know, you only have 5 slots in the category, but here you have nearly unlimited amount of space to list every single service that you offer.
Mhm. Garrett, let's just say like you offer a product or service at the time of open, and then 6 months down the road you change strategies and maybe you don't offer that product or service anymore, but you still had that listed out in the category item, and then you didn't adjust that, or maybe you forgot or whatever. Does that, like, let's just say you're being found for a category that you no longer support? Does that does Google ding you, or kind of what's the approach there?
Yeah, so the truth of that is that if you don't offer a service anymore, you don't offer it, right? Like if you get a lead for a certain service that you don't offer anymore and they call you, you can't give them the product that they're looking for. Again, Google does not actually know these things. It is just machinery. You won't get penalized at all. You should expect to see a decrease in leads if you remove a service that was previously popular, but that's because you don't offer it. So while that seems kind of negative, just kind of take Google out of the equation for a second and think, if you're getting 1,000 calls a day, but they're all calling for something you don't do, then you're really just getting 0 calls. So it's kind of a yes and no answer, right? Like you can expect this isn't Google penalizing you. This is just a series of events that are happening, right? And they have this outcome. But yeah, I would say don't be afraid to make it accurate, right? Just make it accurate. Now, I think Google can, kind of penalize you for showcasing something you don't do in a deceptive manner, right? If you're trying to capture leads for something and do them a deceptive way, if you get reported, Google might actually look into that. But if you're just being honest and being accurate about what it is you do and what you offer, I don't think you should expect to get dinged or penalized for, just listing a service or forgetting about a service you have listed that you don't do anymore. And of course, it's always gonna Google bots are gonna check the website for accuracy. So even if you have something listed and you don't do it, they're just not gonna show up. You're not gonna show up for that service if you don't do it. If it's not on your website, or you'll get kind of cold leads, so to speak. Okay, so further on to the GBP optimizations, these are kind of more advanced ones where before we were talking about some surface level things that are pretty simple to do. These take a little bit more effort. The first one is these posts. If you've interacted with Google Business Profile, you may be aware of the updates that they call them. I would highly suggest that you do these once or twice a month at least. If you have a new service, if you're doing an event, if you have some kind of offer or a special, write up a little post about it, post it on the Google Business Profile. What this really does is, of course, it informs your users of what's going on in your company, but it also lets Google know that you have a pulse, right? You're still active, you're using their platform, and you're still in business. Um, and yeah, use pictures. You can upload pictures and videos. So I highly suggest, exploring this, using it kind of like a mini social media profile, like you would Facebook or whatever. Um, and also videos, I did say that, but videos are highly engaging when it comes to social media. People love watching videos, short, easy to look at videos that you don't have to invest a ton of time in. Um, and this is kind of what they look like. This right here is I believe this is what an offer looks like. It's just it's not going to jump out to your users whenever they're searching, but if they click into your listing and they are kind of looking around, they're going to notice these things. And the further back they swipe, they're going to be like, oh, this company is, you know, they're very active. They're constantly doing new stuff. So it's just kind of that's a user experience thing at that point. But it does tell Google that you are active, you have a pulse. And there are some other advanced optimizations I can speak on. One thing is photos. You have the option to upload your own photos, but I would suggest that whenever you take photos and when you upload photos to the Google, um, take photos in different locations. So if you're a service business, if you're a service area based and you go to the customer's locations, of course ask for their permission, but take a photo of the job site, of the work being done, of the company trucks in the different locations that you're looking to show up in, because those photos hold they hold geolocation data that says like this photo was taken at these geo coordinates. I know that's kind of creepy, but it is true. And when you upload those to Google, it kind of gets a an idea of where your activity has been. So it understands, a little bit about your service area. And I also spoke on videos, post videos. If you have some good looking videos or use some kind of video editor tool, hire a social media person to just make some short 10, 15 seconds, quippy looking videos, upload at least one of them to your Google business profile. I've seen them in context while looking for somewhere to eat, and they're really eye catching. When you're looking at a bunch of just food and you see one of them moving, your eye goes directly there. So that's not really a Google secret. That's just a human psychology thing. We're just drawn to the pretty moving pictures. Another
Yeah,
thing are what's up?
I was gonna say, I think that's based on our attention span.
Oh yeah, no, that's whole other conversation too. That's the social media webinar, right? We'll get
Yeah,
into that.
I blame Vine. I blame Vine in those
Yeah,
6 second
the first one,
snippets.
right?
Yeah,
Another one or questions and answers. You might not even know that this is a thing, but on your Google business profile, people can ask questions, not a review, but they can say, "Hey, do you offer pressure washing services, or do you come to this location?" It's definitely good to just be aware that that's a feature and answer those questions, professionally, promptly, and try to do it in a way that not only answers the question for the person asking, but also answers that kind of questions for anybody else who might see it. It's kind of like a bit of free promotion, right? You can use that to potentially answer any future questions, and just as well, you get feedback on what you're not telling your customers right away. And then
yes,
reviews like a
yeah,
what's up?
you're almost beating them to the punch with that Q&A, and also too,
Yeah,
that could also shorten the customer journey as well, so they don't have to call you, they don't have to ask that question because it's
right.
already
Yeah, they saw that
on
you answered it and they're like, okay, well, I'm going right now, on my
exactly.
way. And reviews too. We usually go to reviews whenever we need our questions answered. Like, is this place good? But reviews are excellent because, of course, everybody needs reviews. You should be asking your customers to leave you good reviews, right? And bad ones if they have them. But one of the most valuable things you can get from reviews are the pieces of media that your users can upload. So if you did go to a job and you fix somebody's pipes or whatever it was, ask them to upload pictures of the work being done on their on your behalf, but from their account. This it holds a lot more weight whenever a user posts a photo to your location than when you post it to your own location. Of course, they're both equally important, but again, this is telling Google that other real users that Google has information about. They know that they're not, you know, a plant. It's not just you from another account. They know that it's a real person that purchased your service, had a good experience, and posted a photo that said, I'm located exactly right here, and this company came to me and I had a good experience. So, yeah, definitely leverage all of those things. And everything we just mentioned, this is all community content, right? You can leverage your customers, your users, most people, if I were to get a big job done on my house or my car, I'm taking pictures of it, I'm videoing it, the before and after. Just ask for them, ask for permission, and ask if you can use those pieces of content. Of course, you're probably taking your own pictures and videos, but uh, just ask to use it, and you can use that for social media posts. You can use it in Google on your website, even. That's just free real estate right there. And I'm going to move on to the last part. We're almost done, everybody. I promise. This is by
Yeah.
far the most boring one, but tracking SEO metrics. This is actually my favorite part of SEO, the analytics. This is basically, it's the stats. It's about what people do on your website, on your Google business profile, what they're doing on Google. And these are three main properties you should definitely look into if you don't already have access to these or you don't have them installed. I would say, do some Googling, ask your web team to get these set up for you. But we've already spoken at length about the Google business profile, which is your listing on Google Maps. But also we've spoke about Google Analytics, which is a piece of software that you install on your website that tracks, what pages people go to, what website they've come from, if they came from Facebook, if they came from Bing or whatever it was. And then there's Google Search Console, which is kind of like analytics, but it's only for Google searches. And what's valuable about this is that Google Search Console will tell you, the specific phrases people use, the keywords that they typed into the search engine to find you, what pages rank for which search terms and vice versa. And what this does is creates a feedback loop where you put out all this content, you make these optimizations, and then you can go into these analytics tools and see what worked and what didn't, and what kind of, who's coming to your website, where they're going, where they're leaving, what they're engaging with the most. And that will then tell you what to produce again in the future and what parts of your website or your properties that they like the most. And ultimately, with the goal being increase organic traffic and conversions. That's what we all want. Maybe it's phone calls, but that's also a conversion. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That I could go on at length about analytics, but I know it's very nerdy and very techy, so I don't want to confuse anybody or put anybody to sleep if I haven't already. But that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any further questions that they'd like to ask in the chat?
Yeah, I know we're a couple minutes over, but we're happy to stay on for a little bit longer to answer any questions that chat might have. If not, I mean, we have a couple of questions and a couple, FAQs that we tend to see. And so one of those is like, what do I do with the data and stats tracked through the analytics software? So that's one, FAQ that we've gotten before.
Yeah, and again, like Nick said, if you guys have to go, we understand it was only till 12:45 anyway. Feel free to leave, head out. I won't blame you for it. But yeah, this is a question, we've gotten this question, but also I kind of asked this question as well with,
Mhm.
what do I do with this data? Like it's just a bunch of numbers. Um, One of the most important things I think you can find is that are people engaging with your website and your content in the way that you intended, right? We have kind of a plan whenever we put out content that, oh, this is going to blow up and people are going to come and then they're going to click on the phone number, they're going to go to the contact page, and maybe that just doesn't happen. And then you find that, oh, this article from 2018 is like the best performing one on our website. Well, what you should do with that is kind of ask yourself why that's the case. Maybe the assumptions you had about your audience isn't aligned with reality, right? Maybe they engage with that older content for a specific reason. So we use analytics software to kind of tell those stories through data that just looking with our eyes isn't going to.
Yeah. And one more FAQ before I see we don't really have another question in the chat. So just one more before we wrap it up. But obviously we just went through a ton of great information, Garrett. So how do you choose the right thing to focus on to begin with?
Yeah, so that's another one, just like the previous question is, what do I do with all this information? And I would say, have a long conversation internally about what role does your digital presence play in your ultimate business strategy, right? If your goal is to sell products online, then it plays a really big part. If your goal is to just get phone calls, it's not as big of a role in that, but from that information, you'll know that everything that I do, every decision that I make should encourage people to call me, should to click the phone number. I should have the phone number up at the top, clickable, big red letters, whatever it is. So I would say kind of just set your goals right. A lot of people are obsessed with views, like they want to see a lot of views on their website, but if none of those views convert, that is become a customer, then there's really no point. I mean, you can purchase views from Fiverr or whatever. Or bots can make views; those don't mean money. So, yeah, get have an internal conversation about what role your digital presence plays in your business success, and how you can use analytics to kind of steer you into the direction of that goal.
Oh, we just got one. Do you have experience with website built HTML?
Yes, actually, I was actually a web developer before I came here to NetSertive. I actually specialize in WordPress websites, which are built with PHP. That's a form of HTML. But yes, pretty much all websites are built with HTML. I would say it's really not even super important that you have that kind of experience with HTML. It's more so that you understand, how to work on the website. I even suggest to people that if you have like Squarespace or Shopify, which those are built with, some form of HTML, but it's just as important to apply these things we've talked about to those website builders. Even if you're not touching the code, these concepts still apply. How much of an improvement is WordPress over HTML? Again, that's a totally different conversation, but massive. WordPress is built on HTML. It's built on PHP, but it produces HTML in the browser. Every single website, pretty much in the world, is using HTML. But if you think of HTML is like using two sticks to make a fire. WordPress is using a flamethrower to start a fire, right? It's just it's a modern tool that we use, and there's tons of website builder tools. I say from an SEO standpoint, most of them are the same. Some of them are a bit more complicated. They serve a specific purpose, but I will just say that if you're looking to perform well, you want a website that's easy to use and update from the owner's perspective, right? That's a big thing about hand-coded websites is they're like impossible to update every single day or make a change. So you want a builder, it's called a CMS, content management system like WordPress or Shopify or Squarespace that's easy for you to go in and make changes without absolutely destroying everything on accident. Because that's the fun of code is that it's very fragile.
Yeah. Well, no, Garrett, thank you, and thank you everyone for tuning in and also staying a few extra minutes. We appreciate your time. We appreciate everyone making time for us to join us, and hopefully you were able to take a few nuggets away from this conversation. And we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar to everybody, so don't feel like you had to remember everything. But if anyone had any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Garrett or myself. Again, we thank you again, Garrett, as well. And we hope you all have a great rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you
See you, everyone.
everybody. And any questions, send them to Nick right here on the screen. Nick Sharp. He's fielding his inbox. He's waiting for y'all. All right, to everybody.
See you, everyone. Have a great week.